Hey gamers, welcome to the Part-Time Gamers Club where we game part-time but support gaming all the time. For those of you tuning back in, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. And if it's your first time here, welcome to the crew. I'm Gio, alongside me is Gerard. And on today's episode, we're going to be discussing AAA companies and are they in danger? Let's get to it.
So, to start this all off, this is kind of a follow up to the success of Expedition 33, but more importantly, the kind of backlash we've been seeing in more studies. So, with the recent success of Expedition 33, we've seen a shift in the industry, and there have been some predictions made, some like well-known influencers like Asmongold or Bellower News or even Legendary Drops talking about how the industry is kind of just dramatically changing. We've seen indies being more successful and AAA games being less so, where only one or two are like coming out per year that have any success or momentum. And the question is the AAA industry, and more importantly, the mainstream industry for gaming just dying, dead? Is this going to be a shift towards newer genres or just newer development life cycles? What do you think about that, Gio?
Well, essentially, I think the focus here needs to be where are AAA companies or what are AAA companies going to focus on because if they haven't noticed, the gamers are responding to the indie companies, like you said, and how their focus seems to be on the gamers, what they want. And not only that, they're putting a lot of more passion into the game. And when you hear about Claire Obscura's budget in comparison to some of the other gaming industries' top titles, you're kind of like, all right, we've heard these numbers before, but do they really need to spend 200 million? It like Claire Obscura, if the big thing about Claire Obscura compared to some of the other indie games is Claire Obscura actually feels like a AAA title. So when you can get that performance with like a quarter of the cost of some of these other AAA companies, it'll be interesting to see how the AAA companies go forward, knowing that we have competition with games that are a fraction of our budgets for the games, our main titles, our big titles, and they're watching their big titles also fail. If you think about Dragon Age, Assassin's Creed, I hate to say it, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was not a success in terms of uh, numbers. I mean, realistically, I think it's only at like 2-3 million copies sold. It's been over a year, and that's not the numbers you would expect from a remake of Final Fantasy VII. A lot of that was accredited to, well, some people believe it, you got to credit some of that to them getting away from turn based and not feeling like Final Fantasy VII. So maybe that had something to do with it. But it is interesting to see these big titles that have had very big fan bases for a very long time fail.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it also was, I feel like Rebirth and Remake are kind of a trend that's going to be taken where we see more games of remakes, remasters, retextured old nostalgic games where they come in with an old successful game and just redo it.
Hmm.
Just because one, they have a true fan base there, but two, it's also cheaper to make with design and just only needing to worry about textures and things along those lines. While people wanted a remake of the original Seven, what they got instead was a sequel, which is a risk because not a lot of people were expecting it. But also, with that, you are also kind of spreading out into a different territory where you do need to make sure that your design is similar, or at least the plot is very similar, or some kind of way to attach. Because the people that are playing the game, not only are they fans of the old game, but they're going to be very critical. Any plot weaknesses, anything that is not consistent with the way they've basically held up a game from the past that's like defined most of their childhoods, are going to be extra critical, but also very, what's the word I'm looking, picky, because they're expecting A plus quality. They're expecting things that are beyond their expectations. And like remake happened to be good, but the problem is that you need to stay that consistent for all the games. If it's a planned trilogy, all of those games have to be good. And if any of them are subpar, in the case of Rebirth, they're going to be a huge backlash, and you're going to take hits.
Mhm.
And while I will appraise Square for being like a risk taker in this aspect, I will also say like, hey, look, you can't complain about like sales dropping when you took this risk knowingly, because this is the part of like making games. And that's the reason why indie games are like more successful and things like that, because not only are they like doing things that gamers want, but they're doing things that they know they want, and are it's mostly passion projects. Now, I'm not going to say that devs that are working on Final Fantasy or any of the AAA games don't have any passion, but I do think that the management of those higher companies don't have the passion that the devs have. And they're looking out for their investors and the shareholders more so than they are for the gamer. And that's just not going to be a successful model. Um, and that brings up my next point,
Mhm.
where the model that the AAA companies have right now is definitely not the same economic model that majority of indie companies have. While like Eastern video game companies definitely have their own systems and templates for that, like gotcha games and things like that. Western companies are going to be different. We don't have, or like recently, the microtransaction economy system or the economic system that has been funding these AAA companies have, at this point, just gotten too bloated. There's way too many things that are in video games as of right now that are just draining gamers. Like the dark patterns and microtransactions is for one, but battle passes is also another thing, and
Mhm.
live services is another thing. Like all these combine together to make one money. That's all their goal is to make money, and they're predatory to gamers. We just want games. Like how you make money is not our problem. We want good games. And if you don't give us good games, we're not going to pay for your product. And microtransactions are the only way, and live service, which are just subscription models, basically, preying on just bad spending habits. That's all it really is, just preying on bad spending habits. And this is just goes to show, like, if even without these microtransactions, live service, like
Mhm.
33 Expedition 33 is a good example, but Space Marine 2, another good example. Metaphor Rosati, which won Game of the Year last year, another good example. Like, these are games without microtransaction. They're not live service games. Like, Space Marine 2 is, in fact, just a game you could play single player. You don't
Mhm.
need to play multiplayer. These games are coming out to critically acclaim and success and profits, and they don't have a hint of microtransactions into them. They don't have a hint of these dark patterns that we see into AAA. So like we see the trend is there, and what makes a successful game is just the AAA companies not doing it. What would you think would it would take for AAA companies to actually see this, see what gamers have been saying this entire time, and doing something different?
I I really don't know how to answer that because you would think they would be seeing what we're seeing at this point. If you think about it, like you were saying, like some of these games haven't had to use those microtransactions or predatory practices to make money. And then on top of that, you think about what AAA companies, especially even this past week, the announcement of Xbox looking to raise prices. It's like, wait a minute. So you're gonna have these live service, you're gonna have these microtransactions, these dark patterns in the game, and then on top of that, you're gonna increase the price of the game. Then you're gonna credit it to tariffs. You're gonna say, these things are expensive. But again, you have games like Clair Obscura. You have Schedule One. Schedule One, I think, is over 5 million copies sold. $15 game. I'm pretty sure that's pretty profitable. If you add 15 to 5 million, you're making some money. You don't have to. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to raise the prices of your game to increase your profit. What you have to do is increase the quality of the game, and we will buy it. You will still make a profit if the game is $40 or $80. You have a better chance at $40 if you put high quality into it than you do $80 and you give us broken games and make us your beta testers, because that's what they do to AAA companies. That's the reality of it. And that's another shameful thing that, like you said, they're thinking about shareholders and they're not focusing on the fans. They rather make money and maximize their profit, make their numbers look good for the quarter. They're playing a game, right? So who suffers when they play that game? Us, the consumer. So I don't know what it's gonna take. I feel like we've seen a trend in big titles failing. Like there's no reason. Everybody that I've watched content creator wise says Final Fantasy VII remake, rebirth, all that should have been an easy slam dunk. There's no reason why that game shouldn't sell 20 million copies. Like you said, they took a chance, they took a risk, they went a different direction than they probably should have, Square Enix. But I think even then, if they went I'll say Final Fantasy 13 route, was still time turn based, but had some QTE and other elements like that, but still kept it feeling like a Final Fantasy 7 game, then maybe they probably would have seen a better result. Also, I gotta say though, I'm not gonna just blame it on that, because honestly, I think where Square Enix went wrong, and I think you're in agreement with me, is the whole loyalty to Sony. That's where they lost out a lot of the money, because they didn't do it cross-platform. If they did it from the beginning on all platforms, I feel like they would have sold a lot more copies. But then you make PC gamers wait like a year later to finally try it. Honestly, I don't really care a year later. I've already heard about the game from everybody else. You know what I mean? So I think they kind of hurt themselves in two different ways, I feel. But as far as AAA companies figuring it out, I really don't know, man. Because like I said, we've watched the last 2, 3 years these games with these huge budgets not make the return of investment that they were supposed to, and now you want to charge us more for games that we know are probably not going to meet our expectations at this point.
Yeah, and it's easy to say that like, oh, these companies are spending more money to make better games, but like, we can see a AAA game be made for half the price. We can
Hmm.
see that in Expedition 33, in Space Marine 2. Like, these games look phenomenal. We have the ability to make good looking games cheaply. Like, why do you say it takes so much money to make video games? No, it doesn't. It doesn't take more money. You just need to spend wisely. Like, literally choose how you spend your money. You can do it with half the people. You can do it with half the requirements, half the time, or maybe not half the time, but definitely half the budget. Like,
Hmm.
plan accordingly, plan safely. Like, the amount of people that you have, it shouldn't take 400 people to make a game. You know what it does? It takes 400 people to make a game in 2 years. But like, cut that in half. Have 200 people work on the game. Give them double the time. Give them 4 years. All right. That other 200 people could be making another game. They could
Hmm.
be making a different game. You can double the amount of people working on games rather than double the amount of people working on a single game.
Hmm.
And like, each of these games are just shots in the dark anyway. If you're going to be chancing and like doing the safe thing of like, oh, we're going to be transcending, sure, whatever. That's a dumb idea. But if you don't want to take any risk, minimize the amount of spending you are. Therefore, you don't have to justify microtransactions, dark patterns, or even like raising the price of the game in the first place. You can get away with like $40, $50 games. How you can probably go back to the standard $60 and not feel a thing.
Well, Gerard, let me ask you this, because we're talking about the raising the prices and stuff. Here's the thing that bothers me when I think about it. You're raising these prices. You're talking about and you still have they make tons of money off the microtransaction. They make tons of money off that. They don't necessarily even have to rely on the sales of the game. If they have enough sales of the game included with the microtransactions, they'll probably garner over the year. They make the money. They make the money. But then I still see layoffs. So wait a minute. You're going to increase your profits, but then tell us gamers that these people need to lose their job. Why?
So,
You know what I mean?
what happened back in the day, and honestly, this is happening now, is the way the old life cycle works was you would hire a group of people to work on a game, and once that game is finished, you would only keep a certain number of them to like keep the lights on and maintenance and patches and things like that, and the rest would just get laid off, or just go to a different project, which is what the old rotation was. Like, hey, we'll hire a whole bunch of people, we'll keep all the knowledge here, we'll build a game. A lot of the people are going to work on the new project, and then some of the people that worked on the team are going to be on the game still for after.
Maintaining.
Yeah, maintaining. That's not the case anymore because they're putting so much money into these games. They're over hiring for their projects now. So they even if when a project is finished, they can't move the people that are on that project to a different project because that project's already saturated. So like, a good example, the Square Enix team. All right, they had at this time Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the Final Fantasy 14 teams working together. Okay, now those projects are going on at the same time. Now, if when one of those projects finished before the other, a good example is Final Fantasy 14's new expansion that came out, Dawn Trail. Once that is finished, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is already full with developers. So they can't just move the team from Final Fantasy 14 or like a good majority of them to Rebirth because you're just oversaturating it, and you need to give them all new positions and all. Like the transition's already expensive as it is. So what do you do with that? You either have to make a new project, which needs to go through design, production or pre-production, and all of these things, and storyboarding before they can even work, or just lay them off. Save your money, and eventually, when you need to hire people back, you might not even need to hire people back because the game came out, you get a profit from that, you can afford to hire people again for your next project. As long as you are not losing out knowledge, aka keeping your senior devs, keeping your senior test leads and things like that, you can just lose out, this is unfortunate to say, the lower of the totem pole without any consequences there. Because right now, learning new stuff is quick. You can quickly get someone up to the code within months, and these games take 2 years. If you get someone up to code for 2 months, guess what? They are now in the train for like the next 2 years. Okay. But back then, you couldn't do that. That's why they had the ability to move people, because companies, specifically like publishers or like studios, they would have in-game engines. They would have the engines that like for their games, and you need to teach people how to use those engines. Majority of the gamers now are just using like engines that are open source or like Unreal or Unity. These are just at this point just industry standards that people should know. You don't need to teach them. You don't need to train them. You just give them a direction. And that's what is really coming down to at this point, just the epitome of like greedy practices and like removal of the humanity or the humane aspect of programming and development, because these games are no longer being passion projects. They're products. and
Well,
that's the sad part about it.
that's why I mean I really feel like AAA companies are in danger of. I feel like we're going to either see a lot more companies go in the direction of Ubisoft, where they're either going to need bailouts, or they might not get a bailout and just be completely out of business at some point. Um, because they don't want to change these practices, and the problem you have right now, and I think you said this mainly, so more so off camera, was it's all about corporate now. The corporate, it's a corporate world in gaming, and that's why AAA companies are failing. The way because you can't run the way they're trying to run it is like almost like running like retail stores, and the practices they're using are just not. It's not going to work, and especially now they can't even utilize the gaming journalists to help them because they're realizing, oh, we can't play the media game because now you have the independent space where you get the Asmongold, you get the legendary drops, you get people like Doctor Disaster, Hypnotic, all them that they talk like us, like real gamers, like they're giving you guys the information and saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of us out here like you that no, you're not wrong to think these games are bad
I
or
would
agree with
say it's not that they talk like us. They
you.
are us. They
Yeah,
are
exactly.
gamers. Like
Hmm.
they're influencers. That's what they are.
Hmm.
They're people who with large following that
Hmm.
are just gamers. Either the people that are following them are tied
Hmm.
immensely to their personality. If they're like a case of Asmongold, if you have like a toxic person, all the people that are following them are going to be toxic, but they're also
Hmm.
going to have the same likes. They're also going to
Hmm.
have the same critiques. And if one person of them finds bullshit or
Hmm.
smells it, that entire like
Whole
following is
community.
going to agree with
Yep.
them. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what you need. Game journalism is dead because it's no longer like a community based thing. It is articles. It is forum posts on a
Hmm.
web blog that is just thrown out into the void. There's no
Hmm.
connection to its community anymore, and that's why they're dying and they're lost art.
Well, the journalists aren't real gamers. That's the reality of it. They're more focused on political agendas and all this other stuff that
I
it got away from gaming. It
I
just got
was
away from the focus.
I was gonna say it's not. Some of them may not even be politically forward. Like
Hmm.
Polygon's a good example. That died, but that was also politically and
Yeah.
entwined and
Yeah.
morally changed. But I was gonna say it's they're writers first and gamers second, and that should not be the case when you're writing a game review. You should be a
Hmm.
gamer first. I will read or watch content that even if it has grammatical incorrections, even if there's spelling mistakes or it doesn't make any sense to me. Well, if it has to make sense to me, but even if there is no like train of thought, if I can tell that the person was passionate or has like furious about the game, has honest critiques about what gamers would hate or love,
Hmm.
I would take it at face value rather than thinking what kind of piece is this? Is this a hit piece? Is this a
Yeah.
political
Exactly.
piece? What
Exactly.
what is this? It's not gaming news anymore, so it's hard to say nowadays.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah, like we said, I feel like the AAA companies are in a serious predicament right now, and they really need to think things through because moving forward, it feels like if they don't change their practices and ways, like you said, these indie companies are just gonna they're just gonna outdo them, and they're gonna bankrupt them. Basically, that's basically what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and that's just what's gonna happen. Like, especially with, and we've talked about this already, the Europe, uh, kind of adding that regulations and possibly within the year, just banning outright dark patterns and probably standardizing the microtransactions. A lot of them are gonna have to change their plans, and some of them are just gonna straight up fail, because like
Yep.
people like Bungie, Marathon's not looking hot right now. Marathon's beta test
Mm-mm.
is just flatlining, and like the only thing you got going for you right now is Destiny, and with like how that's gonna be, you're gonna lose your European audience, or worse, you're gonna have to redo Destiny too, and that's not going to be cheap. That's going to be an expensive thing that you cannot afford right now. And you've put yourself into this position. You've put yourself in a position where everything is going to come back to haunt you now because
Mhm.
you decided to be greedy.
Yep. And that's what needs to happen, man. The gamers need to fight back the way they are. And you know what? Either y'all gonna listen to us, or we're just gonna make you bankrupt. Either way,
And
it's just gonna happen.
honestly, so this is the unfortunate part of this. A lot of these are going to affect developers
Mhm.
and people who did not deserve this. I There's very very few times where I think a developer's at fault. There's like sometimes I'm just like, hey, this probably shouldn't have been coded this way. Diablo 4 is a good example. Uh, but there's very few times I go, hey, this needed to happen. Like the company is failing, the devs
Mhm.
deserved it. No, none of these mistakes, these microtransactions, these live service updates, any of these are the problem with the people who are actually losing their jobs. And that's the sad part of it. Like we're watching like the game industry collapse through higher management or upper management decisions, and it's the people who are passionate, the people who love their jobs that are getting the short end of the stick.
Well, I like I told you when we did the Claire Obscura episode, I really hope a lot of these developers group up and just invest in themselves and make games for the gamers. Because just like Claire Obscura or Schedule One, any of these other uh, indie games that have been very successful in the last year or so, we'll buy your games. We'll make sure you make money. We'll make sure you make money. Trust us.
And that's kind of the thing though. Like I do think the gaming industry cannot die because it is integral with people's lifestyle at this point. Some people's entire personality is video games. So it cannot die. Like there's movie junkies out there. There are book lovers. There are
Music fanatic.
gamers now. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
literally, the industry cannot die, but the companies,
Oh yeah,
those can be gone. Those can be removed. They
correct.
can be extracted. And the devs, they are losing their jobs. They're losing their livelihoods. But I know for a fact that there will be companies out there and there are games still to be made that they can work on.
Hmm. Absolutely. They'll always have a job. They'll always have a job. I mean, even if that's not with a company that let them go now, they'll get work again.
You know who should not be hired? The CEOs and the upper management that
Oh,
came from
absolutely.
different industries. I swear to God, if I see a CEO like coming from like the movie industry or like
Hmm.
Netflix that ends up in the goddamn gaming industry another fucking time, I'm not whatever company they go to, I'm not buying anything from them. Because
Yeah.
obviously this we've gotten ourselves into this like
Hmm.
predicament because of all these changes and all these like recruitments from outside industries in, and it just goes to show gaming industry is a different industry. It is not there's no other entertainment industry like it.
Well, that's if you think about it, they try to do that. They try to go the corporate route with even the DEI content. You've said it 100 times. Make a good game first, then you implement your DEI. You implement, create a good storyline, create a good game, create a good foundation. Make sure your game isn't broken. Because if you don't, people that already are critical of DEI are just gonna pin it on DEI. They're gonna be like, this game sucks because of DEI.
I don't know how that's such a fucking hard thing to ask for. Like I was just like, don't give me a broken game. Like literally, there is no other product in the world that comes out that is broken when you first get it, and you have to go back to get it fixed. And the people that
I
are
need you to patch my iPhone.
yeah, like what the fuck? Like, oh, my phone is broken. You know what you do? You give it back and they give you a new one. How is the gaming industry the only industry where this is fucking possible? It makes no sense to me.
That's like an album that doesn't play. You gotta wait for the patch to come out on
That's
Tuesday.
so it's so fucking stupid. It's stupid as fuck.
But all right, I think That's really all I got. I mean, we'll see what happens with the AAA companies going forward. Hopefully, they put
I
some new people in those leadership roles that are
I
listening to gamers.
I need Expedition 33, and this is the last thing I'll say. I need Expedition 33 to win Game of the Year this year, so
Oh,
that the
absolutely. I
industry
think we all
needs
do.
to fucking know that we're tired of this shit. We're tired of these bullshit, boring ass, safe, and over monetized games. I've
Well, remember, the gamers spoke up and were really, really going after the Game of the Year award last year, and they weren't going to give it to Black Myth Wukong until the fans were like just going off because they were, they were basically saying that you guys are becoming, basically, just agenda pushers and you're not listening to us. We're the gamers. We're telling you what the best game we played this year is. So I feel like if anybody's going to have a lot of support, it's going to be Claire Obscure. And I think I feel like they have a good chance of winning. I think the only contender, if if Gearbox does it right, is Borderlands 4. The only one I can see.
I don't
Maybe
even
Monster
have.
Hunter. Maybe Monster Hunter. I'm not gonna lie. Monster Hunter was great.
I already told you, like, I think the performance issues that came out earlier that a lot of people had issues with, and the lack of because it's good, it's a good game, but it's World 2.0. It is
Yeah.
not better than World. It is just a new world, and as a fact, I'm gonna say right now, Expedition 33 is better than Monster Hunter right now, in my opinion.
No, I wouldn't argue that.
So, well, we'll see. I mean, it depends. If Monster Hunter came out with an expansion the end of this year, maybe.
I doubt it though.
I
You
doubt
said
it. I
Capcom.
really doubt it. I really doubt it. That's why it wasn't even on my radar. But yeah, that's all from us. Make sure you leave a like and a comment down below on your thoughts of the gaming industry as a whole. Also, what do you think would be the game of the year? Because with everything that's being announced and what's already been out, there's only one clear answer to that, and it's definitely not a AAA game. So that's it from us. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.